All right, so welcome to the first session. And we're gonna start from starting to recognize the feeling behind creation. If you take a second and start thinking of all the times you felt you had an impact with what you did, with what you created. You felt quite happy with the result of, I don't know, something you wrote, something you said, something you prepared, and so happened. All the times you've been surprised by yourself. You say, oh wow, I wasn't expecting to get that out of me. You will recognize that there is something quite consistent in terms of feeling. There was a connection with something almost, some musicians describe it as, you know, something else playing the guitar for them, right? And there is really a connection with a source that seems to be bigger than us. When we are at our best, when we actually don't see any problem in, oh yeah, I could do that, and we start doing it, and then it happens, it's because we're really close to that feeling and spend much more time with the feeling rather than in our head, questioning and doubting. And at the same time, if you think about the times you've been impacted, if you think about the times you got, you were in a room and someone was speaking and you weren't sure why, but wow, there was something happening and you were impacted, or reading something, or attending a particular event, or being with a person in a relationship. You, if you take your time, will recognize again that there was something behind these people, behind the words you were reading, behind the words you were hearing, behind the exhibition you were, watching. And that is exactly the same feeling I was referring to earlier. Like, there seems to be something else other than the words or the actions that really make the difference when it comes to creating things that impact people in the world. And when I say impact people, you don't have to kind of think, go too far and too big. It doesn't have to be, like a world changing thing. I mean, I think I would suggest that anytime we want to create something, deep down our desire is to impact someone, maybe one person, maybe thousands. If I have to write a birthday card for someone I truly care about, I really want it to impact them, right? To let them feel something. And that is impacting people, that is creating things. I would like you to consider that everything you do in your day is potentially a creative project. So what I invite you to do is start recognizing the feeling, start recognizing and getting into the mindset of, wow, I just can get great at making things happen regardless of what the things are. This is radical. This is something we're not used to here. This is something that, if you take a second, you recognize that it's not part of how we normally approach projects. We immediately go to the specifics. We immediately go to, like, I have to write a business plan. So what's the structure? What's the thing? And we forget that at the core of it all, there is this feeling and there is this capacity to become better and better at creating. And your days, your life will become so much fuller and exciting because it will go from one task after the other. All right, okay, I have to write that thing and I have to send that email and I have to prepare that lunch it will actually turn from that into a beautiful series of chances and opportunities to practice creating. And what happens when we create? We get to express fully ourselves. And I understand, again, this might sound silly, But what I'm gonna invite you to do in the next few days is to try to experience even the smallest act of creation, like a birthday card, as full expression of yourself. What happens if you go all in and if you kind of like ask yourself, how am I going to make this birthday card a true, deep, powerful expression of who I am? So the first step in this process is starting to recognize that feeling that counts when we are actually engaging with something in that way. And therefore, the first exercise of this masterclass is the following. Take a second or two, take all your time to reconnect with the feeling of being all in. Reconnect with the feeling of being fully engaged with something. Reconnect with the feeling of those times in your life where you were creating and it was working and there was absolutely nothing stopping you from making things happen. I promise you that even just by the end of this masterclass, and it's just a short series of video, you will already be much closer to being absolutely unstoppable than you were before you started. But it all depends from you getting a taste for how it feels for you in your body, in your being, when you are all in, engaged with life and with what you're doing and creating. The second thing is take your time and try to go back instead of the times you've been impacted. When you were in a room and someone was speaking and just there was something so attractive, about the person who was speaking that you couldn't help but being impacted. And the cool thing is that usually we make up stories for it. Like, well, it was very impactful because it was very eloquent or articulate, or because it used metaphors and I like metaphors. But the truth is, if you slow down enough to see it, that it wasn't the metaphors. It wasn't the words he used. It wasn't the very, very bright and beautiful slides he brought. It was the feeling, the energy. It was the fact that right there and then in that moment, he was fully engaged with what he was doing. And you got to do that too. You got to bring the same energy, the exactly same energy and potential that Steve Jobs brought to work when he was creating his best products, that I don't know, any writer you love brought to work when he was creating they were creating their bestsellers, and so on. And the way to recognize that potential is to get a feel for it. So have fun, take your time, slow down enough until you can almost taste that feeling. And once you felt that you reconnected with it, I'm gonna be ready for you in the next session. Bye bye.